Hi everybody and welcome to another episode of Timesport on the Beat. I'm your host Faizal Salim. In this episode, we'll turn away the spotlight from medals and match results and into something that's just as important but often overlooked: the mental health of our athletes. Behind every podium finish, there's pressure. Behind every bad performance, there's scrutiny. And while Malaysian athletes train hard to stay physically fit, what about the mental game? And are we doing enough to prepare them and protect them? Joining me today is sports psychologist Philip Lew. Philip formerly served with the National Sports Institute, working in the High Performance Road to Gold program with some of our top badminton players. He is currently the sports psychologist for three-time league champions and mid-season cup winners Selangor Red Giants. Welcome and thank you for joining us, Philip.
Thank you, Faizal, and thank you for inviting also.
Yeah. Okay, so Philip, let's just start with kind of a broad. How do you assess the awareness of sports psychology and mental health among our athletes in Malaysia?
I would say that the mental health understanding and also the appreciation for sports psychology has changed a lot since I started to work in ISN in 2015 when I came back. And I think that a lot of changes happened when Michael Phelps, arguably the greatest Olympian of all time, decided to speak about his mental health issues in an interview. When he mentioned that, and it opens up the door for people to say that if Michael Phelps has issues, have mental health struggles, all of us may have mental health issues as well. So I think that the awareness is there. However, the action towards that awareness still have a lot of rooms for improvement, especially in Malaysia setting. I think that Malaysians are open to the idea of speaking up and are looking at a lot of youngsters, especially the younger generations, are speaking a lot in the social medias. And hopefully we have enough professionals, mental health supports and sports psychologists to be able to support them through this process.
So in your opinion, are we making progress or are we still behind the curve?
I would say that we are making progress, but it all depends on how open the athletes are of speaking up. Second is how open the athletes are of receiving the support, and also how many qualified, competent sports psychologists or even mental health supports that we have to be able to support them. Because it is a bit challenging if people open up, speak up, and no support or not enough action is given to them. I think it's unfair to them. But I think that we are doing better. And I think that we are growing as well in this whole process.
Fantastic. We often hear about we often hear about physical conditioning, but mental toughness seems not to be talked about a lot. So how much of an athlete's success goes down to their mental game as well?
I would say that if you want to look at sports or even performance as a holistic event, I would say that it's always a combination of the physical, technical, tactical, and of course the psychological do play an important part. I would say that if just said you have the psychological or the mental toughness and you lack the other three elements, you may not be able to succeed as well. However, if you can able to make it into a much more comprehensive and holistic package towards the whole, I would say there's like a whole package towards the whole cake, the chances of you to achieve success is even more. And the mental toughness is always been one of the factors that is being discussed, being blamed. Whenever anything goes wrong, I think that mental toughness or the word mental strength do comes very frequently. I think that it's a bit easy. You just look through the social media, you will receive lots and lots of comments. The athlete is mentally not strong, the athlete is mentally not prepared, things like that. But the big question is, are the athletes prepared for the situation that they're going to face? And each of the sports that I work with, I usually discuss with the coaches, with the athletes about what are the psychological demands of that particular sports. Because each sports, each situations, the psychological demands will be very, very different. I think that in a way, we always keep mentioning the word, you need to just treat it like a competition, even in training. But can we do that? That's a big question. And also the feeling of being able to compete in, let's say, in the Asian Games or even in the SEA Games or even in Sukma or even in a village game, school game, the pressure will definitely be different. So how do you be able to assess it and how do you be able to be, I would say, practice your mental strength and your mental toughness plays a very important role in this.
So going back to what you said, it's like a whole package. So it needs to go side by side with the physical training of the athlete himself. and not only be brought on when the athlete is facing some sort of trouble mentally.
Yes, and I think that the most impressive or usually the most effective, I would say, like the most effective psychological training that I've seen and I've worked with is that the coaches and the athletes and us work together and use it in all facet of your training sessions. Because I think it's a bit unfair or it's a bit weird if, let's say, you only bring an athlete in for a session. Or let's say for a week, you only have one psychology session, you bring them into a classroom setting, and all of a sudden you do psychology. But it's not. And this is the question that I usually ask to coaches and also the athletes. When do you train psychologically? And people will be like, oh, okay, we do it this and that. But actually, every single day, the moment when you start wake up, till the moment you go for training, you do psychology training, physical training, your SNC training, your tactical training, actually psychological is always a part of that training process. You cannot just say that, oh, now I'm going to use psychological training. It doesn't work this way. But having a comprehensive or unique psychological training or assessment or what we say as a PST training is useful, but it needs to be integrated into your whole multifaceted practice or even the process. Then you only have an effect. If not, it'll be a bit difficult because people will keep mentioning, oh, I just come into the classroom setting and I do a psychology session. But the problem is when you're competing on the pitch, in the field, it's not in the classroom. It needs to be able to integrate and to be applied on field, then only it will work.
So basically, what you're saying that it's not just bring the athlete in for a session in a office setting, let's say, but also need to go to the ground when they are training, and also the psychologist need to observe and also maybe bring up whatever is there observed during the training session. Is that?
Yes, definitely. I would say that having an understanding, I would say that it's across different steps or even different factors. One is that before you start your session or even before you start your psychological assessment or understanding, I think that having them in a classroom setting will be useful. To just explain about what sports psychology is, you have an understanding about what it is.
Like an introduction.
Yes, an introduction session. Then it's about how do you teach them the psychological skills training, like the common one that we use, the self-talk, the goal setting, the imagery, or even the relaxation techniques. When you practice it, I would usually hope that this is practiced in the training setting environment. Because this is where we want them to be able to utilize it and implement it when they're under pressure. And it is usually in the pitch or even in the training setting. And having a sports psychologist or even have a practitioner to be able to be there and you look at how they train, how their body language is, and I would like to observe what happens when they make a mistake. What is their reaction? What is their reaction? And do they able to bounce back? How long they are able to bounce back? Because at the end of the day, it's about we can have a real life understanding about how the athletes feel. Of course, when you ask the athletes will be like, yeah, how are you feeling? Yeah, good, fine. But I always like to tell my athletes, you do not need to tell me how you feel. At times, I just need to see how you feel and I can know. Then we will discuss further about, during this particular scenario, if you have I think that why we mentioned about the multifaceted sports science element is that, let's say if you have a videographer, a performance analyst who is recording the athlete's reaction, like usually what we do with hockey players, like I was working with, we work closely with the video performance analyst. Then we can see that if, let's say, an athlete lose the ball, what is his reaction after this? I think that when you discuss with the athletes with evidence, it is much more impactful as compared to asking the athletes to think about, oh, what happens when then and that. Maybe at times we cannot be able to think about it. But when you have someone with the video evidence, a scientific evidence to say that this is what it is, you can actually expand more from here. So when you're facing with a particular challenge, how do we create the sports psychological techniques to be able to support you to overcome this particular challenge? I think it will be very useful.
So yeah, maybe also in my experience when I ask questions to the athletes, I ask them, how do you feel about this? They sometimes, maybe in the moment, they struggle to find the words to explain how they feel. So maybe with the evidence base, and they can see, maybe they can understand how they feel better in that moment, like that.
True.
Yeah. So also I want to move on to the next question. What you mentioned just now the difference between the Asian Games and SEA Games is the pressure is different. So when we are going up these levels, so what are the mental hurdles that usually that in your experience you have found our athletes struggle with?
I would say that it all depends on the levels of the athletes. Each one of the athletes and the levels of the athletes. And second is that what are the skills that the athlete has, psychological skills that is developed by the athlete. And next is that what is the expectation of the athletes. Each of the teams or each of the athletes that we work with have different expectations. Some athletes are aiming for gold. Only goal, that is the only target.
Yeah.
While there will be athletes that aim for podium. For athletes, there will be participations and learning, gaining experience. So each of the different expectations will come with each of the different psychological demands. I think that is fair. I think that this is why some of the athletes are in the Road to Gold program, while some are moving or fighting to be in the Road to Gold. And it's the same with all the athletes potentially qualifying for SEA Games, or can you win the gold medal in SEA Games. So I would always say that when this particular scenario arises, this is the biggest psychological demands that you need to be able to identify and to be able to discuss with the coaches. Because when you cater or when you design a sports psychology program, these are the elements that needs to be integrated. It's almost like telling athletes, oh, you can be able to do this and that, but in their heart, do they truly believe that they are able to achieve it? Or it's just that, no, I'm not. So you need to be able to discuss with the coaches and also to be able to cater to the athletes' understanding as well. This is why I always say that if you have a 360 feedback that has a discussion between all parties, you will have a very, very strong or very effective psychological or even a training program that works. I think that I can share about what I did with SRG, Selangor at Giants. The first time when Boss Simon approached me, we actually sit down between me, Boss Simon, Coach Arcadia and Coach Becky. We actually went to the Selangor training ground. We had a sit down and I had a discussion with Coach. What is his expectation from each of the parties? Because I want to know that are their expectations in line with what I can offer? And it is what it is. I think for the past 1 year, we've seen that what are the results that we got. That means that the values, I always mention to the word, the values, the identity, the culture and the environment. All these elements need to be in line with the psychological demands. Then only that particular program or that process will work. So I would say that this is among the biggest challenge that you will face, is that if you are not able to cater to these 4 elements, this is why sometimes we can see that the psychological process doesn't fully being effective. It's almost like you are having this particular challenge, but the skills that you have is inadequate. So you'll feel very, very challenging. However, if let's say this is the challenge that you face and you are developed and you are ready adequately to face the challenge, you have a better chance of achieving success. I'm not saying that when you do this particular psychological training, you're definitely delivering medals or success.
It's not guaranteed.
It's not guaranteed. But I always say that you can increase the possibility of success.
So previously we have spoken before, and you mentioned that sometimes Malaysian athletes they are too humble. They don't envision themselves being successful, or they are afraid to say that they want to win, because sometimes they don't want to invite too much pressure on themselves. So you know, what is it really important for them to like have that visualization and that belief within themselves that they can win, they should imagine themselves on top of the podium with a gold medal around their neck?
That is part of the imagery process lah. If we do visualization, do imagery, definitely you'll be able to think about what is the image of success means to you. And I think that we need to be very precise, is that the meaning or the definition of success is different for each of the different athletes, as we mentioned earlier. Like some athletes will be aiming for gold, some will be podium, some will be participations, each one of you. But I would always have a say with the athletes, and you have to decide what does success means to you. And that is where you'll be able to show, or you'll be able to work towards the goals that you set. And usually the word, the humbleness is that, I think it's a good trait to be humble. And I think that is always being emphasized. If you are humble, you'll be able to work more you have show more dedication, to show more commitment towards it. But at times, I notice that because of the social media, I think the rise of the social media, people tend to criticize you when you mention a particular achievement that you want to achieve, people will be on social media will be there. Is this what you want or things like that? And at times we tend to become too humble and we tend to not mention anything. But I'm okay with athletes not mentioning their targets, but make sure that in your heart, in your mind, you have a target. Because for some, although they do not speak it out, verbalize it, visualize it, but they are able to know what they are aiming for. And you can see that a lot of those top level athletes, they do not speak that much, but you know that they are laser focused towards it. And they are quite, they know, like I said, they know what their plan is, what their goal is, and they know how they're able to achieve it. And I think that is always been the most important thing. But it all goes back to your understanding with your athletes, and also how much trust do the athletes have with you as well to be able to speak up. Because that trust is not just towards the coaching staff or even not towards us. It's about your trust to yourself, your own potential. I think one word that I usually tend to emphasize to the athletes is that at the end of the day, at the end of the road, I hope you achieve your potential. And do you know your potential? That's the question. Because when you speak about your goals, when you imagine about your goals, you imagine what success means to you, it's all about you trying to achieve the potential that you have and work towards it. And that is, I think that's the biggest satisfaction when you see an athlete able to achieve the potential that he or she has.
But also I feel like culturally we are Asians, Southeast Asians, we are taught to be humble, but it doesn't. Sometimes we are too humble, but you're saying that that's not a huge problem. But the athlete themselves must have that target within that belief within themselves. Is that it?
I would say that it is more like a mindset.
Yeah.
If let's say what they are saying, like they do not truly believe that they're able to achieve it, and it becomes a mindset, it becomes a belief that can detrimentally affect their performance, then something needs to be done. If let's say they are humble, they are okay with it, their mindset is strong enough, and they are able to achieve the success they achieve, I think it is reasonable. Because it's almost the same like when people talk about, do you need to have a positive mindset or do you need to have a negative mindset? I've seen before athletes that have very negative mindset still able to perform extremely well.
Wow.
Because for them is that although we have a negative mindset, I always say that it's okay because as long as you are human, you do have negative mindsets.
Yeah.
But how do you package that negative mindset and how do you put a positive mindset behind a negative mindset? Just for example, this is usually what we do with the athletes. I couldn't do it. This is the normal word. Can I do it? But you can always put the word but. I couldn't do it, but I will do a positive reinforcement behind. All of a sudden, now it becomes a much more productive word. But you couldn't stop the negative mindset from happening.
Yeah.
It's almost like telling people, don't think negative thoughts.
Yeah.
It's a bit difficult.
Yeah.
It's okay to think about negative thoughts, but you need to put something behind to make it much more positive and give it a much more directional factor towards it, then it will work. That's why usually when people keep mentioning to me, oh, think positive, I think I can seriously tell you it's extremely difficult to just think positive when you're facing with the challenges that you face, especially in the major games. But you're able to overcome the challenges by coming up with very realistic and reasonable, I would say that directional information. And also I would say that it's almost like a prompt for you to be able to overcome the challenges that you might face.
Yeah, because I think like as human beings, we don't have to talk about athletes, just a normal everyday person, we tend to pay attention to the negative more than the positive. So you're saying that it's not a problem, but you have to put a positive spin on it, something like that.
As long as it is not a problem, unless it becomes a problem. If let's say the thoughts or your mindset or the way you act becomes too negative until it becomes an illness, it's a diagnosed illness, then we definitely need to do something about it.
Okay, good.
However, at times we tend to become too sensitive. Any single negative thoughts or any symptoms, we tend to over-diagnose. It was like, oh, something is wrong. But actually, it's not. It's a normal human being. I usually tell my athletes, as long as you are alive, you are not a robot, you will have negative thoughts. But how much the impact of the negative thoughts influence your sporting performance and most importantly, your life, determines the next act of action. If let's say it is too detrimental, it is very effective, or it already affected badly, then we need to maybe seek someone or someone professional to deal with it, because it is affecting your life now. But if it's not, you are still able to manage it, then we can move on and we can always still monitor this throughout this process.
Interesting. That's very interesting because, like you said, we're bombarded on social media like super positive stuff. Sometimes even to the point where it's toxic positivity, but being negative, being normal, that's normal. Yeah.
I think that it's a bit interesting because I was just watching the latest Superman, the Superman movie, the James Gunn Superman movie, and one quote that he used is that I'm human, and the most human thing that I do is that I'm afraid every single day when I woke up I make mistakes. And for someone like Superman, it actually reminds us of our athletes. Athletes, if you really look at them, they are being idolized.
Yeah.
People look at athletes like being idolized. They can't make mistakes. They are perfect. But actually, athletes are normal human beings doing extraordinary stuff. And they are almost like Superman. So they have to be open to the idea about they can be vulnerable at times. It's almost like no athletes or no teams in the world will win every single game. The greatest team of all time, I think that this is one thing that we mentioned to SRG especially. The greatest team of all time, the New Zealand All Blacks team, their winning percentage is 83%.
Yeah.
So that means there's 17% chances of them losing as well. But it's just that people just keep mentioning how good the team is. I agree. But they do show vulnerability as well. But most importantly is that do you have the capacity and the skills to be able to bounce back and overcome the challenge? But it doesn't mean that overcoming challenge doesn't mean that you are completely invincible. There's no wrong. You will show weaknesses. You will show vulnerability. And most importantly is that do you have the capacity and also the social circle to be able to support you through this process?
So I want to continue on youth development and also the early intervention. So when we speak about sports psychology, it's usually at the senior level, the senior athletes, also at the elite level also. So what about the younger athletes in your experience? How does that implementation happen, or is it even happening?
I would say that it is been happening more since the start of like after COVID. There are schools, primary schools or even secondary schools are approaching sports psychologists to be able to provide the support to them. And actually I'm working with some of the schools as well to be able to provide the psychological support to the teams. And I'm happy to see that happen. Because every single time when we talk about sports psychology, people keep mentioning about the elite level.
Yeah.
However, the elite level for me is almost like on top of a pyramid. That top echelon of people that should already have the sports psychological skills and is developed. It's almost the same like when for an athlete, all of a sudden you never see him before, you never see her before, and now you have to develop sports psychological skills. Sounds very weird.
Out of sudden.
All of a sudden. So if let's say a sports psychological skills is developed from the grassroots, from a young age, go up till when they reach the elite level, I think it's much more impactful. And I noticed that more and more schools are trying to integrate this into their curriculum as well. Because it's not just about psychology, it's about their mental well-being and how they develop as a person as well. If you mention about schools, it's more than just about sports. It's that dual personality, it's the dual relationship or identity of as a student and also as an athlete. Which I think that if compared to a lot of other countries, such as the US especially, they are very, very established. Especially in the school levels, in the university levels. We are slowly growing. I noticed that more and more schools are growing it, but we still have a lot of rooms to be able to catch up to the states.
Yeah, I'm so happy to hear that the school level is reaching out to professionals such as yourself to educate them on sports psychology. Maybe you can go a little bit deeper, like who has been, what type of teams and what type of support you've been giving to the teams.
I think that as long as you are involved in sports, regardless of whether it is a football team or even a rugby team or even a basketball team or any sports, you can actually approach a sports psychologist. And I think that a lot of times people don't approach us is because of the financial implications. However, if you are willing to invest in the technical, tactical, the coaching part of it, having a comprehensive, cohesive, holistic approach towards psychology will actually helps you to maximize your investment. This is what I noticed. Like for instance, one of the teams that I work with is MCKK,
Okay.
the Malay College, Kuala Kangsar. They have a football team, and their parents and their teachers and the coaches actually wanted me to work with the team, and we do work with the team. And actually last year they won the Daira tournament, and it shows that if you have a comprehensive program, solid program, and the athletes have the awareness, regardless of what levels of competitions you are, it could be the juniors, it could be the seniors, or even in the schools, it actually can have a very positive effect. I'm not saying that having psychology definitely means that you will be successful, but actually helps you to have the skills to be able to be better in your studies and also to be able to achieve more in your sports as well.
I think it's also important for like coaches and parents in the when youth level ni that they have the skills to detect whether an athlete is like burning out or something's going wrong mentally with them. So is that something that you do also in this session with the schools?
I would say that the athletes is a process or a part of this big ecosystem. So when you're working with, I think that even in the elite levels as well, the social circle plays a very, very important role in it as well. The parents, the bosses, the sponsors, anything can be involved. But of course, the social circles, the coaches, the support staff are the closest to the athletes. And imagine if the parents or even the social circles is very negative. In a way, it will influence the athletes as well.
Yeah.
So when you work with the athletes, it'll be good to understand and also to educate and to create an awareness with the social circle of the athletes as well. Then you will see a much more impactful relationship between the athletes and be able to work and communicate with the people that is surrounding them.
Okay. Over the weekend, I wrote a piece about one of our swimmers, Fijingan. I don't know if you saw that.
Yep.
Yeah, and she spoke about social media and also the scrutiny that comes from social media and also the people, how we shouldn't be preparing young athletes to face that scrutiny is that we have to reflect on ourselves. So what is your take on the role of social media and the scrutiny that is facing our athletes and how does that impact them?
Social media, for me, is a double-edged sword. I noticed that, and some athletes actually tell me, the moment when people don't talk about you on social media, regardless of whether it is good or bad, that means you are gone. Because
That's
you
how
do
they
not have,
feel.
because in a way, when people talk about you, it actually creates the market value. You have a rooms for people to discuss. You have a room for people to talk about. I'm not saying that it is right or wrong, because I felt that your values should be determined by yourself as well. But unfortunately, we cannot underestimate the power of the market, the power of the society. So if let's say this is the social media era that we are moving towards, make sure that the athletes are well educated and being well equipped to be able to manage the impact of social media. How do you effectively use social media, and how you're able to isolate yourself, in not way is to strengthen yourself if let's say the social media is going against you. Because one understanding that we need to have is that regardless of what scenario you are in, there'll always be the good, the bad, the evil. We hope that the good is the most. However, when the bad and the evil comes in place, we tend to get shocked because we are not prepared for it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that the people who are spreading all those rumors, all those negative comments are right, because I felt that what is wrong is wrong. However, the athletes are unable to stop them because it's almost like you going against the world. It's almost like you're telling to the world, don't talk bad about me. People will say,
they have no
no
control over that.
Yes, you cannot be able to control what people write on the keyboard. But you can able to control or manage how do you react to the situations. If you are reacting to every situation it's a bit difficult because you will be facing with a lot of different. Like I worked with the football team previously in the 2018 Suzuki Cup with Coach Cheng Ho. If the team does well, fine. You'll receive like 20,000 good messages. If the team goes well, it's the other way. You'll be overwhelming of negative message.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to be prepared, the players and also the athletes and even the coaches about what you're going to do when this scenario happens, so that you have the preparation. I think the key word here is preparation, and also being able to teach them and educate them on how do you manage this particular situation.
Yeah. We coming up against some time, but we have a little bit time left. So I want to talk about your work with Selangor Red Giants. They are one of the top performing teams in Malaysia when it comes to esports. They 3-time league champion back to back. They won the mid-season cup. They're going to fly to Riyadh on the 31st to defend their title. Also, but last year they came up short at the M6 World Championship in front of a home crowd at Axiata Arena, and we can see the entire playing staff and also the coaches were crushed by that defeat. I think one of the players, in a sense, he couldn't even face the media after the match. So when you are faced with that type of crushing defeat, crushing blow, how do you like get in there and maybe assist with the players and to manage those overwhelming disappointing emotions that they are feeling in the moment?
I think that if, let's say, the players, the coaches, the team is not disappointed or do not have that feeling, something is very weird.
Yeah.
Something is very
Yeah.
weird. That means you are happy by losing.
Yeah.
Then something is weird. As long as you put in the dedication, you still want to win, that kind of emotions will happen. Because this is almost like a negative reaction towards a negative event. But one thing that we learned from the team is that how can we work harder and do better to avoid the possibility of that particular feeling to happen again. And that is where I say that from a negative scenario, how do you create the positive journey or outcome to create that whole to be much more productive?
Yeah.
So regardless of whether you are the coach, you are the team, you are the psychologist, or you are anyone who is involved in the team, I'm definitely sure that every single defeat, we take it personally. But how long do you take it personally and how long do you feel down or disappointed is determined by you. Some people will take ages, but some people were able to bounce back. For instance, we take Yannick Sinner, who lost in the French Open in 5 sets to Alcaraz. And look what happens in 3 weeks' time. He managed to beat Alcaraz in Wimbledon. It showed that confidence is not about falling down, because falling down is a process that every one of us will face. But are you able to bounce back? And are you able to bounce back together as a team to achieve the next target that we're aiming for? Because like it or not, what happens had happened. We hope that we have given our best, wish we have given our best. However, the outcome was not what we expected. But it doesn't stop us from keep working hard to achieve the future targets that we are aiming for.
That's very interesting to hear as well. And time flies when you're having great conversation. So thank you so much for listening to Timesport on the Beat. I'm your host Faizal Salim, and our guest Philip Lew. We hope you enjoy our session. You can listen to the podcast on Audio Plus, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again, and I hope you will join us again next time. Thank you.